Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for watching. This is Warren Redlick. Quick update on Tesla stock. It's currently trading around $441 share. We're down a little bit, but I don't worry about short-term stock prices. I just know a lot of people who follow me like to talk about this stuff. So stock is down for the moment, probably be back up and then back down. We have a volatile stock. It's what it is. So today's video, we're going to talk about Tesla's Q3 financial results, a little bit from the slide deck, a lot from the earnings call, and just want to thank you to Elon Musk and my new character, Lord Farquaad, not Farquaad, but Farquaad. We've incorporated our friend Farzad into Lord Farquaad just because it's silly and it's fun stuff on X. And please follow me on the X platform, WR4 NYGOV, which is Warren Redlick for New York Governor, a history from back in 2010. So when we talk about this, we're going to talk about Robotaxi. That's going to come early. We're going to talk about FSD. We're going to talk about AI5 hardware. We are going to talk about Optimus. There's some what I consider really huge news for Optimus long term, and that's going to be at the end of the live stream. At the end of my notes, we'll still have some live chat at the end after that. But probably the biggest news of this entire earnings call is what Elon said about the prospects for Optimus going down, maybe 5, 6, 7 years out. Um, I found that overwhelming. There's a lot of great stuff in this call. So, and some of these clips are a little longer, but it is what it is. Hello, B. Hello, Mark Plot. Hello, Mark Potochnik. Who else we got? A lot of good people here in the chat. So thanks so much for being here. Okay, so there is a live chat. If you are watching this after, I'll be talking to my chat, which is over here. And that'll happen from time to time. So let's go into the clips. Let me take this out.
A couple million a year. And in fact, with the advent of with what we see now as a clarity on achieving full self-driving, unsupervised full self-driving, I should say, I feel confident in expanding Tesla's production. So that is our intent, to expand as quickly as we can.
So just really quick on this, I got a couple clips where Elon talks about expanding production, and I just want to stress here, I think he's a little unclear. And I could be wrong. I think he may have misspoken in a sense, but you're going to hear this. But plain and simple, Elon is saying, based on what he's seeing with Robotaxi, with FSD, the improvements that they're getting closer to being able to make this go wide, you're going to need more cars. So they want to produce more cars. So he's talking about that here. We're going to talk more about this in a second.
Our future production. So I was reticent to do that until we had clarity on achieving unsupervised full self-driving. But at this point, I feel like we've got clarity, and it makes sense to expand production as fast as we reasonably can.
So expand production as fast as we reasonably can. He says that, and there's more coming in another clip because one of the analysts asked about this, and Elon gave pretty extensive follow up. But so, remember, we have a factory with, do I have it here? We have a factory. This is our factory capacity, right? We have capacity for 100,000 Model S and X, 550,000 Model 3 and Y in California, about 1 million in Shanghai, about 375,000 in Berlin, 250,000 in Texas, 125,000 Cybertrucks. There's a lot of capacity there that exists. Cybercab's under construction, Tesla Semi's under construction, and Roadsters in design development. By the way, this is from this quarter slide deck. Nothing changed. Nothing has changed in this capacity chart. This is one of my favorite charts because I'm waiting for one day this is going to change, and we're going to have some new information about where Tesla's production capacity is. But this is, I think he says our total production capacity is less than 3 million. And I look at this and I'm like, it's in the ballpark of 3 million potentially. When Cybertruck should be able to go to 250, and Berlin probably should be able to produce more than 375,000. Texas should probably be able to produce more than 250,000 Model Ys. Shanghai's really 1 million. Of course, Model S and X, I don't know if the demand is there for 100,000 units. But anyway, that's there. So next clip. And more about the vehicle manufacturing expansion. I think this one is a longer clip.
Well, our capacity isn't quite 3 million. but it will be 3 million at some point. Aspirationally, it could be 3 million within. We could probably hit an annualized rate of 3 million within 24 months, I think.
I heard that and I was like, what is he talking about? Why would it only hit 3 million in 24 months? That was troubling to me. Like 24 months. They should be able to get well over 2 million on what we have. And then Cybercab should kick in. So I think when he said that, he's leaving out I could be wrong. I think he's leaving Cybercab out of his estimates. I think that if they ramp Cybercab, which is supposed to be a 1-year ramp, and it's supposed to produce in very high volume, then Cybercab should push them well over 3 million. So I wonder if he misspoke there, but hear more about this.
Maybe less than 24 months. Bearing in mind, there's an entire supply chain, like a vast supply chain that's got to also move in tandem with that. But we're gonna expand production as fast as we can, and as fast as our suppliers can sort of keep up with it. And then we're going to think about where do we build incremental factories beyond that.
Incremental factories beyond that. Now we know there's going to be a line for Cybercab in Giga Texas. Presumably they're going to make Cybercab in Shanghai, right? You have Tesla factories in Shanghai. I think there's a Mega Pack factory and a vehicle factory. Presumably Shanghai is the place where you make Cybercabs. Do they make Cybercabs in Europe? I don't know how likely we are to get approval for Robotaxi in Europe. But Shanghai supplies vehicles to Europe anyways. I don't know how much need there is, but if I heard them correctly when they talk about Cybercab plans, they're going to pump out a vehicle every 5 seconds when they're fully ramped. You do the math on that, that's a crazy number of vehicles produced. So that's why I was surprised when he said 24 months. Like, if you're going to, he's going to say later that they're going to start Cybercab production, like, I think end of next year, maybe middle of next year. Maybe they're going to start pilot productions Q2 and they're going to get production in volume by Q4. Like, well, wouldn't volume production of Cybercab be really high? So that's a little unclear. I don't think we got fully clear answers to that, but let's keep going. This is a longer clip, remember.
The single biggest expansion in production will be the Cybercab, which starts production in Q2 next year. That's really a vehicle that's optimized for full autonomy. It, in fact, does not have a steering wheel or pedals.
So Cybercab starts production in Q2 of 2026. That's in the ballpark of 6 months from now. Could be 7 or 8 months, but it's in the ballpark of 6 months from now that they start production. And by the way, he mentioned no steering wheel and pedals. I'm sorry, Lord Farquaad. I'm sorry, Lord Farquaad. Farzad. Lord Farzad. I'm sorry that there's no steering wheel or pedals, but Farzad is obsessed with they need a steering wheel and pedal version of the Cybercab, and he doesn't get Elon. Anyway, let's keep going.
And is really an engineering optimization on minimizing cost per mile, for fully considered cost per mile of operation. So that's for our other vehicles, they still have a little bit of the horseless carriage thing going on, where obviously if you've got steering wheels and pedals and you're designing a car that people might want to go do fast acceleration and tight cornering, like high performance cars, then you're going to design a different car than one that is optimized for a comfortable ride, but doesn't expect to go past sort of 85 or 90 miles an hour.
So Cybercab is not expected to go past 85 or 90 miles an hour. It's not expected to be a driver's car. It's a comfortable passenger's car. And this is partly why, Lord Farzad, that it won't have a steering wheel and pedals. It's not made to be driven. There's no consumer market for buying two-passenger. If you look at the history of two-passenger vehicles, very few of them sell. The ones that do sell, like the Mazda Miata, are fun to drive. This car is not intended to be fun to drive. Let me just quickly address Mark Plott mentions Tesla announces new solar panel production at Giga Buffalo. So Tesla has a factory in Buffalo, New York that does solar stuff, and it does, I believe, power walls. And they mentioned that they have a new version of solar panels that is more aesthetic and more efficient. And so that's going into production soon, and they're going to produce that at scale. And they were optimistic about solar There's some tax changes that are, or some U.S. policy changes or something that will encourage solar deployment. Hopefully interest rates will come down. That will help. And Tesla's also introducing a leasing program for solar, which doesn't make any sense to me to lease solar panels, but that may be coming. There's a bunch of people mentioning that, there's no cars available. The inventory is very low for Tesla right now. And kicking off the new standard range model, the standard Model 3 and Model Y, which have pretty good range, 320 miles of range for, I think, the lowest price they've ever had for these cars. There will be demand for those cars. Like the people who were ready to buy a Tesla may have bought in September to get ahead. But there's people starting mid-October to November who weren't thinking about buying a car and all of a sudden need a car. And those people aren't thinking what was the tax credit deal last quarter, right? They're like, I need a car. Hey, I can get a Model 3 for something like $35,000. And I get 320 miles of range. I save a lot of money on electricity versus gas. They may sell a lot of them based on that. And don't forget that the other parts of the world didn't have the tax credit to lose. So the introduction of, Model YL in China is going to help. And I think we're going to see, I think Model Y standard and model is in Europe. I don't have Model 3 standards in Europe. Okay. So let me turn back to the video, to the clip rather. Listen up.
And it's just aiming for a gentle ride the whole time. That's what Cybercab is. Yeah, so it's, do I think we'll sacrifice margins? I don't think so. I think the demand will be pretty nutty. Like here's the killer app. Really, what it comes down to is, can you text it? Can you text while you're in the car? And if you tell someone, yes, the car is now so good, you can be on your phone and text the entire time while you're in the car. It's anyone who can buy the car will buy the car.
So Elon is saying demand for Tesla vehicles is going to jump as we get unsupervised FSD. But nobody really asked the question, when do you expect to start using FSD, to start selling FSD unsupervised and tell people that they don't need to pay attention and they can text while driving? I don't think he's given us a date for that. We know version 14.2 is coming soon. Version 14.1 is apparently very good from what I'm seeing from people on X. But it's also jerky. And Elon is saying, it's very safe, but it's not that pleasant yet. And as they keep dialing it in, probably around 14.2, it's going to get better. Then around 14.3 or 14.4, he's going to talk with Ashok later. You're going to see some other features kick in. And these, like the car will go park itself. The car is going to use reasoning. They're going to go to a 10x on the parameters, and that's going to make the car drive better. So there's a bunch of things coming, I think, by the end of the year. Not Q3, not Q4. I mean, we already finished Q3, not Q4, not this quarter, but probably next quarter, Q1 of 2025, Q1 of 2026, so starting January 2026, if they actually deliver like Banish, so that the car drops you off at the front of the mall and goes and parks itself, like, which is stuff they're going to talk about, then, will people all of a sudden be willing to pay a lot more for a Tesla, or not expect discounts for a Tesla and they'll pay for FSD? And is that really going to jump sales up? Elon thinks it will. I don't know. I don't know that we know that.
And a story. That's what everybody wants to do. In fact, not everyone wants to. They do that. And that's why, in fact, the reason you've seen there's been an uptick in accidents pretty much worldwide is because people are texting and driving.
But just a quick note, I don't agree with Elon on that. I don't think we know. And one of the guys I follow, the construction physics blogger, he's on Substack at Construction Physics. He did a post on his Substack about what's causing the increase in pedestrian fatalities. And there's a lot of different theories, but people have been texting on their cell phones for a long time. Like, it's not like cell phone texting is new. So I think if you go back 15 years or 10 years, people were complaining about people being on their cell phones all the time. But the rise in texting while driving and pedestrian fatalities is more recent. So I'm not sure I agree with Elon, and construction physics guy did this. Jeffers says, YouTube just NFL'd your channel. They split the screen and running ads on the right side for me, and you're on the left side with no volume till the ad ends. Interesting. Yeah, there's a feature that YouTube has now where they put ads on the live stream. If you are a YouTube Premium member, or maybe, I think if you're a YouTube Premium member, you skip the ads. I actually stopped being a YouTube Premium member, um, but because I'm spending more of my time on X and less of my time on YouTube. I do watch some YouTube stuff. Strangely, I watch more NBA videos, not NFL videos, and not Tesla videos, because I get all my Tesla content on X. I would encourage people again, join the X platform, follow me, WR4NYGov, follow Elon, follow, even Lord Farzad. Farziness is on X. You can follow him too. Years ago, there was a university somewhere that had an R&D team working on house paint with solar properties that allow you to use your entire house as a solar panel. There's lots of theories about how you could make solar work, but the practical reality is all of those theories, like paint, like it sounds good, but how do you make it work? And how much does it cost? And how do you scale it? So, you can have solar windows. Yeah, you can, but the sun is shining from up above, so solar windows aren't that efficient. And then you got to run wire to your window, or like, how do you convert the energy? How do you convert the energy from paint to like going into your battery or whatever, or into your house? There's lots of theories about it. It's not as easy, and solar panels end up being a really easy way to do it. And they're not very expensive. The price of solar panels keeps falling. So, all right, let's keep going with the clip. This is a long clip. Sorry, but there's a few long clips in here.
So autopilot actually dramatically improves the safety here, because if somebody's looking down at their phone, they're not driving very well. So that's really the game changer. And we do see, like, at this point, I feel essentially 100% confident. I say not essentially, 100% confident that we can solve unsupervised full self-driving at a safety level much greater than human.
I think he's referring to on hardware 4. On the current chips in the current cars, they can make FSD and self-driving, unsupervised self-driving safer than human just on the hardware 4 chip. AI, he's going to talk about AI 5 maybe here, but also I have a long clip on AI 5 coming, the next generation chip that's coming.
So we've released 14.1. We've got a technology roadmap that's, I think, pretty amazing. We'll be adding reasoning to the car. Our world simulator for reinforcement learning is pretty incredible. Like our when you see it, the Tesla reality simulator, you can't tell the difference between the video that's generated by the Tesla reality simulator and the actual video. It looks exactly the same. So that allows us to have a very powerful reinforcement learning loop to further improve the Tesla AI. We're going to be increasing the parameter count by an order of magnitude. That's not in 14.1. There are also a number of other improvements to the AI, just that are quite radical. So it's this car will feel like it is a living creature.
So Elon pumps FSD a lot. Now the question was about expanding manufacturing, but he's backing into it or coming back at it by saying we're expecting FSD to be really amazing. He doesn't really give a date for these features. I think maybe Ashok is going to come in here in this clip or in another clip and say this stuff is going to happen by the end of the year. But are they saying we're going to go to unsupervised FSD by the end of the year? I don't know. Reasoning is they're going to talk about the reasoning later. Basically like it'll be use reasoning to choose a parking spot when you send banish. Okay, let's keep going with the clip though.
That's how good the AI will get with the AI4 computer. This is before AI5.
So that's critical. So with the current chips in the current cars, not hardware 3, which we're going to talk about later, with the current chips in the current cars, it's already they're expecting that not just Elon, but Ashok and the AI team, they are expecting that it's going to be much safer than human unsupervised. Thank you, Mark, for posting that. My X account is in the chat, thanks to Mark.
And then AI5, like I said, is by some metrics 40 times better. Let's just say safely, it's a 10x improvement. So it might almost be too much intelligence for a car. I do wonder, like, how much intelligence should you have in a car? It might get bored.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention here, what Elon is saying is the AI4 chip is so good that they might not need the AI5 chip to make the cars drive well. The cars may drive well enough on AI4 that it may not make sense to put AI5 chips in the car. And there's another long clip coming on AI5. I have had the theory for a while now that AI6, the chip coming after AI5, will not go in cars. That the AI6 chip is intended for Optimus, which is going to have much more complicated decisions to make than the cars, because the Optimus operates. The cars navigate in a fairly defined space. This is still a complicated world, but it's on roads. The car generally doesn't deal with vertical stuff. It doesn't deal with elevators. There's a lot of it doesn't drive in the woods. It doesn't drive on the beach, mostly. So the Optimus is going to be operating in a lot. The car doesn't operate inside a house. It doesn't operate inside an office building. Optimus is going to operate in a lot more complex environments, and Optimus is going to manipulate objects, which is probably like a 10x in terms of if not more, in terms of the demand on the brain. So Optimus will need the advanced hardware, but the cars will probably get AI5, but they may not need it. AI4 is that good, but AI5 is going to be much, much better.
Actually, and then one of the things I thought, like, well, if we got all these cars that maybe are bored, well, while they're sort of, if they are bored, we could actually have a giant distributed inference fleet, and say, like, well, if they're not actively driving, let's just have a giant distributed inference fleet. At some point, if you've got like tens of millions of cars in the fleet, or maybe at some point 100 million cars in the fleet, and let's say they had at that point, like, I don't know, a kilowatt of inference capability of, high performance inference capability. That's 100 gigawatts of inference distributed, with power and cooling with cooling and power conversion taken care of. So that seems like a pretty significant asset.
People caught on that line. That seems like a pretty significant asset. So 100 gigawatts of inference. In other words, if you have 100 million cars out there, that's down the road, right? But if you have 100 million cars out there, and each car has 1 kilowatt of compute, efficient compute, that would be 100 gigawatts of compute available. Currently, there is no AI data center that's reached a gigawatt. So that's 100 times as much power as the most powerful AI data center that exists today. But again, 100 million vehicles, we're talking at least 5 years from now. And by then, there probably will be at least much larger than 1 gigawatt data centers. And then, of course, the cars will be driving, so you won't get access to all the compute in the cars all the time. And then you have the issue of how do you make the cloud work? The upside is when you build an AI data center, you need to make sure you've got electricity coming into your AI data center. You need to have cooling in your AI data center. And that's all built, as you mentioned, that's all built into the car. So there's a real advantage in having the cars as your AI inference fleet, because they're all providing their own cooling and their own electricity. So the car will ponder the meaning of life while in the parking lot. Very nice. And really quick, I think Jim mentioned it. Please don't forget to vote your shares in favor of Elon's compensation package, in favor of the board of directors. I think there's 2 different votes on Elon's comp and one vote each on the 3 board members. Please follow the board's recommendations. Vote as the board recommends. I don't support the XAI investment, but and the board didn't take a position on the XAI investment, so use your own choice there. I want Tesla to invest in Tesla and not invest in some other company, but that's a whole other thing. I might want to invest in XAI, but I don't want Tesla to do that. I want Tesla to use its capital to invest in Tesla. Jiffer says, I do not disagree with an inference as a community, but I need something in return for my energy. Why do you assume they're selling you a car? These are robotaxis. These might be Tesla-owned robotaxis. Who says they're selling you these cars? And if they do sell you the cars, they'll just make it a condition of the purchase. And if you don't want to buy the car, you don't buy the car. You can have all the attitude you want. You insist on that, they just don't sell you the car. They'll sell it to somebody else who doesn't care. He is full of wind. Who is full of wind? I'm actually confused by one of the votes, and the board has no recommendations. It's about bylaws being checked or something. I would check Alexandra Mers, Tesla Boomer Mama on X. would check her. I think it might be her pinned post how she recommends people vote. I voted other than the XAI vote. I followed her recommendations. And yeah, really quick. Forlin asks, "How's life in the USA?" I went to the United States for 3 nights. I visited with my kids, and I came back. And I had massive jet lag there, and I had massive jet lag here, and I got over the jet lag this morning. It's night here. And then we're going to travel again for about 10 days coming up. So I'm all over the place. I'm not doxing myself. I'll probably dox myself once I'm there. Um, okay. So I think we finished that clip. Um, I think there's more coming on the AI5 later in this video, in this live stream. So let's talk about some other stuff here. I did this already. The vehicle capacity report didn't change. Someday we will see this numbers change. We'll see Roadster appear. We'll see Semi appear. Semi should start production. They talk about. I think I left the Semi part out, but Semi will start production maybe Q1, but should be ramping by Q4. Cybercab's going to start production next year, so those are going to change. Maybe these capacity numbers will change a little bit. Maybe we'll get a Model 3 somewhere. Maybe we'll have a second Cybercab location. This is something I look for every slide deck. Did they change anything? And they never changed anything. It's really frustrating for me. Just in the financial summary, and let me make this bigger so not only can you see it, but I can see it. You can see that total automotive revenues is higher than any of the previous 4 quarters. The bigger news here is that energy generation and storage revenue is probably a record. I'm sure that's a record. And then services and other revenue is also a record. So those numbers are growing. So that's good. So and the total revenue, which is right below that, is the highest of the previous 4 quarters. And then down next to Elon, you've got net cash. And so the other big thing was that net cash provided by operating activities was $6.2 billion, the same as Q3 2024. And free cash flow was $4 billion, which is a really good number. So they got a lot of that's positive, more cash coming in. And the cash pile reached $41.6 billion. So, they certainly have the cash to invest in XAI. I want to see them invest. And they talked about the CapEx number was there. Wait a minute. The CapEx number was actually down compared to the previous quarter, compared to the 3 of the 4 previous quarters. Vaibhav mentioned, so I think you're going to hear the clip, that CapEx is going to rise next year. Maybe next quarter, but certainly next year, CapEx is going to rise. We're going to see a significant increase in CapEx on things like building Cybercab and maybe building Optimus lines and building Semi. So expect CapEx to go up, and that's one of the places the cash is going to go. And then on their core technology report, the thing that stood out to me most here was they expect a lithium refinery in Texas to begin production this quarter, and they expect lithium iron phosphate lines in Nevada to begin production in Q1 2026. The lithium iron phosphate lines in Nevada, that's probably to supply lithium iron phosphate batteries to Megapack. I don't think that's for cars. I think that's intended for Megapack to reduce their costs because they're paying a lot of tariffs on Chinese batteries coming in. So if they can get lithium iron phosphate battery production down well and then expand it, then they don't need to bring in batteries from China for that.
We are expecting to have no safety.
Sorry, this is an update on Robotaxi. The next clip is an update on Robotaxi. I think I got 3 or 4 clips coming about Robotaxi and FSD.
We are expecting to have no safety drivers in at least large parts of Austin by the end of this year. So within a few months, we expect to have no safety drivers at all, at least in parts of Austin.
This is something a lot of people have been waiting for. Is it really a Robotaxi if you have to have a human in it? So he's going to talk a bit about, over the course of these clips, he's going to talk a bit about the presence of the safety driver or the safety rider. By the end of this year in Austin, there shouldn't be anybody. So, and just really quick, if those who follow me closely, I have options that the strike date is in January of 2027. So if the Robotaxi fleet starts expanding significantly without humans in it, that's a sign that we're going to start to see a significant increase at some point in revenues and profits. And, heading towards that world where we have 10 million Robotaxis making $500 billion a year in gross profit, and all hell breaks loose in terms of the stock price. So, and, if we start down that path, before January 2027, then I expect my options to go crazy, right? Because if the stock doubles, my options like 5x, right? And I've got a substantial account of options. So if you are like me and I don't recommend options for everybody. It's, I aimed for like 5 to 10% of my portfolio. It's grown enough that it's now like, it's not 15% of my portfolio, but it's getting there. I think on a good day, it is 15% of my portfolio. So yeah, no hitchhiker by the end of the year. So yes, he did say that. So the reason why Austin is because, well, they started in Austin first, and because California has more demanding requirements. And then the other states are going to come in. He's going to talk about that. All right, let's keep going. We're going to talk about Hardware 3 later in the call, later in this video. Okay. All right, let's keep going. I was just checking the chat there for a second. Let's keep going with this.
We're obviously being very cautious about the deployment. So, our goal is to be actually paranoid about deployment, because obviously even one accident will be front page headline news worldwide. So, it's better for us to take a cautious approach here. But we do expect to have no safety drivers in the car in Austin within a few months. I think that's perhaps the most important data point. And then we do expect to be operating Robotaxi in I think about 8 to 10 metro areas by the end of the year. It depends on various regulatory approvals.
So that's another key, right? If Robotaxi expands and you go from Austin and the Bay Area to 8 to 10 metro areas, 8 to 10 metro areas, I don't know if they're operating in Los Angeles yet, but Los Angeles is probably coming. As he'll talk about, you've got Nevada, you've got Arizona, you've got Florida. There's other places that they filed for. So we'll see how that goes.
And but you can actually, I think most of our regulatory applications are online. You can kind of see them because they're public information. But we expect to be operating in Nevada and Florida and Arizona by the end of the year.
If I recall correctly, they applied for 4 different markets in Florida. So although he only mentioned a few states, if you operate in 4 markets in Florida, well, that's 4 out of your 8 to 10. And you've got Austin, and you've got 2 markets in, say, California, and you've got Nevada, probably Las Vegas, and Arizona. You've got Phoenix, right, which is where Waymo operates. I think, going where Waymo is probably good. Let's keep going.
Ashok?
Yeah, we continue to operate our fleet in Austin without anyone in the driver's seat. And we have covered more than 250,000 miles with that. And then in the Bay Area, where we still have a person in the driver's seat because of the regulations, we crossed more than 1 million miles.
So if you didn't catch that, 250,000 miles in Austin so far, and more than 1 million miles in California so far. So that means they've done 1.3 million miles on Robotaxi so far. So that's a lot better. I think there were some early numbers. People said, oh, they've only done 7,000 miles. Well, okay, well, now they've done 1.3 million miles. Not bad.
And we continue to see that the fleet, Robotaxi fleet, works really well. Customers are really happy, and there's no notable issues.
No notable issues. Customers are happy. We like no notable issues, right?
On the customer side, customers have used FSD Supervise for a total of 6 billion miles as of yesterday. So that's like a big milestone. And overall, the safety continues to be very good. And as Elon mentioned, we are on track to remove the person from inside the car altogether, starting with Austin.
So that's Ashok, who's the head of the Autopilot FSD program. So it's one of my things about following Teslas. Elon will say stuff and you'll say, yeah, Elon's just talking. But if someone else on the team, it could be SpaceX and Gwynne Shotwell, or it could be, Tesla and Ashok, or Tesla and Lars Moravi, somebody else on the team starts saying the things that Elon's saying, that gives you a lot of positive thinking. He's talked about blind sight. Well, we're installing Neuralinks in people's brains in other locations. Well, they've done that now. A lot of the things, people like, oh, Elon makes promises and never delivers. A lot of the stuff he doesn't promise. A lot of the things he's been saying are going to happen are happening at a lot of his companies. Grok is now, I think, arguably the best AI. Like, I'll just really quick on Grok. I use AIs to explain Asian images in Asia, typically with Asian text in them, and Grok is terrible at that. ChatGPT wins on that point. I generally use Grok for everything, and I still try to use Grok for that. But just today, I tried, hey, what's this text mean on this image? And Grok got it completely wrong. It did get it right the other day, but it got it completely wrong this time. It was some Thai, post on X or whatever that it didn't understand. Elon doesn't own Tesla. I don't know what that means. Elon owns about 15% of Tesla, and with the comp package, he will own potentially 25% when we're all said and done. Let me look in the chat here for a second. Customer base might look again if Tesla offers anti-kidnapping. I don't think there's a lot of anti-kidnapping issues. And if the car gets smarter than human, then it'll recognize the kidnapping before the human in the car recognizes it. So Florida needs Robotaxi. Oh, hell yes. Florida definitely needs Robotaxi. Miami needs it. Orlando needs it. Tampa needs it. Why don't Elon buy back Tesla shares instead of asking for a higher comp package? It would automatically increase his stake in the company. Why do you think that Elon shouldn't get paid for his work? I don't understand why people think Elon shouldn't get paid for his work. I don't know how people get that. Elon is working for the company. If he 7x's the value of my stock, I don't mind if he gets $1 trillion. I'm sorry, I don't know why it bothers you. If he doesn't succeed, he doesn't get paid. What is your concern? I don't know what that question is. Does 6 to 10 equate to half the country's population? Yeah, Boring Company's making some progress. We'll see how it goes. But they talk about it until we see it in action. It doesn't mean much. So Google Translate works, but sorry, really quick, Jim. Google Translate will work, but if I'm looking at a menu, Google Translate will give me a literal translation. That might not explain what the meal is. What does that dish mean? Well, boring dig from Alaska to Russia. That came up. I don't know if people caught that. Maybe I should talk about that briefly. I posted like 4 years ago a video on YouTube here. You can look up boring on my channel or boring Bering. And I talked about boring a tunnel through actually 4 tunnels through the Bering Strait connecting Los Angeles to Shanghai through Russia and Alaska. And my theory is Putin finally saw it because I mentioned it another time and Elon responded saying it was technically feasible. So if Russia and China get on board with it and the United States gets on board with it, we could do a lot for the environment. But that's going too far. Let's focus back on Tesla.
Well, I think even if the regulators weren't making us do it, we'd still do.
So there's a question about the safety driver, and Elon's responding about the safety driver in this clip, which is a shorter clip.
Well, I think even if the regulators weren't making us do it, we'd still do that as the sort of right sort of cautious approach to a new market. So just to make sure that we're being paranoid about safety, I think it makes sense to have a sort of either safety driver or safety occupant in the car when we first go to new markets to confirm that there's not something we're missing. Because all it takes is like 1 in 10,000 trips to go wrong, and you've got an issue. So it's just to make sure, like, is there some peculiarity about a city, like a very difficult intersection, or I don't know, something that's an unexpected challenge in a city for that 1 in 10,000 situation. And I think we probably could just let it loose in these cities, but we don't want to take a chance. And like, what we're talking about here is maybe 3 months of safety driver in a new metro to confirm that it's good, and then we take the safety driver off, that kind of thing.
So for people who are concerned about that, look, if you're going to have this system running for decades, and with millions of cars, and you run safety drivers on dozens or hundreds of cars for a few months, that cost is trivial compared to the long-term gain. Chomsky says, Warren, will you sell stock again like last time to de-risk if pay package isn't approved? So what happened last time was, I get comments about this a lot. People don't understand what happened. I was 100% all in on Tesla. I was concerned about the shareholder vote last time. I'm much less concerned about the shareholder vote this time. I sold 20% of my stock, held cash, A few days later, the package passed. I bought right back in, and I lost 1% of my total stock in the company. My 20% went to 19. Went to 19. The 20, if it was 20 shares, it came back as 19 shares because the price went up. So it wouldn't de-risk if I waited until after the pay package vote, right? So so far I haven't decided. I've been very, very positive. I have very positive feelings about the shareholder vote, so I'm less worried about it. I was much more worried about it before. I'm seeing, number one, Elon gets to vote his shares. Kimball gets to vote his shares. I don't think there's a lot of concern about this one. But if I get worried about it, yes, it's possible I would sell some in advance to just, make sure the vote went okay. And I will say that if I think I mentioned on YouTube already, but I sold about 4% of my stock in Tesla in order to buy Nvidia. I'm working on a video coming up. I don't know, I've been dragging my feet on this, but because I'm traveling and whatever, but I've been planning to do a video about Nvidia in the near future. And as I research Nvidia, I think Nvidia shows some promise. I think really, really huge upside to Nvidia and several risk factors to keep in mind that I'm trying to wrap my head around. But what I've seen so far, like the upside is so huge that I thought, okay, it's actually not necessarily bigger than Tesla's upside. It might be bigger than Tesla's upside. I think it's basically 1000x, right? Which is probably bigger than Tesla's upside. But I think there's more risks to Nvidia's future than there are to Tesla's, and that's a long conversation, but that's for another day. Remember the rich Singapore guy? Yeah, he's out. Why aren't I worried now? I'm seeing more. I other than the same people who opposed it before oppose it now. ISS and Glass-Steagall, these advisory services. But I think the shareholders are on board. The retail shareholders on board. I haven't heard any hint that the institutional shareholders are a problem, other than these ISS or whatever. And then Elon gets to vote. So Elon has like 15% of the company. I think Kimball has another 1% of the company. So that comes in and influences the vote even better. Yeah, I know Nvidia already 1000x. I think it's going to 1000x again. It could. I think there's a lot of things that would keep it from 1000x, but it could. Okay, so let me move on. We're going to talk more about FSD now. FSD progress.
Now, the first priority when we release a major new software architecture for Autopilot is safety. So it starts off with safety, obviously safety prioritized, and then we solve comfort thereafter, which is why I don't recommend people take the initial version like that's why I say most people should wait until 14.2 before they actually download version 14, because by 14.2 we will have addressed many of the comfort issues. The priority is very much safety first, and then thereafter the comfort issues. That's why most people I'm like, it'll be a little it'll be safe but jerky, we just need time to kind of smooth the rough edges and solve for comfort in addition to safety with a major new Autopilot architecture change. But it really is. I mean, I know what the roadmap is for the Tesla real world AI and at a very granular detail. Obviously, Ashok is leading that, and I spent a lot of time with the team going, in like excruciating detail here on what we're doing to improve the real world AI,
Yeah, people talk about Elon as sort of like, well, he's not really running Tesla. He's busy with other things. And it's very clear from this call that Elon has been putting a lot of time into Optimus, into FSD, into the AI5 hardware. He talks about, like weekly meetings on all of these things. He's very, very involved. We're going to talk about hardware 3 soon, next clip, but this clip has got a little bit to go.
Like I said, this car is going to feel like it is a living creature, and that's with AI4 before even AI5.
Yeah, I'm not talking about it here. Shamsky mentions Ashok's presentation. Ashok did a presentation that I think Sawyer Merritt shared. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. And I actually didn't see anything new in Ashok's presentation that I wasn't aware of before. It was really like a presentation to say, here's some of the cool things we're doing at Tesla with FSD. Come work with us, and with Optimus. And I don't think he said anything mind-blowingly new. He talked about the, end-to-end architecture, photons in and control out. And he talked about one, I think the one detail, if you really dive into it, is that it's not just photons in, controls out, that they also get other things from it. Like they can actually ask the AI, why did you do that? Which, I didn't realize they could do. And there's other details they can pick out from it to figure out what it's seeing.
Yeah, the roadmap is super exhilarating. Like it's like so like waiting so much like release all the stuff we are working on in terms of like what we ship to customers versus Robotaxi. It's mostly the same. Obviously, customers have some more features like they can choose the car wants to park in a spot or driveway or something like that, which is not super relevant for Robotaxi. But there's only like a few minor changes like those ones. But the majority of the algorithms and the architecture, everything is the same between those two platforms.
Yeah, but and as I mentioned earlier, like we'll be adding reasoning to I don't know, Ashok, is that like reasoning in like 14.3, maybe 14.4, something like that?
Yeah, for by end of this year for sure.
That's important. By the end of this year for sure. Not like we think maybe. By the end of this year for sure, reasoning will be in the cars, and Elon's going to tell you what reasoning's about.
Yeah. So with reasoning, it's literally going to think about which parking spot to pick at the. So it's going to say this is the entrance, but actually probably there's not a parking spot right at the entrance. If it's a full, if the parking lot is fairly full, the probability of an open parking spot right at the entrance is very low. But actually, what it'll simply do is drop you off at the entrance of the store and then go find a parking spot. But it's going to get very smart about figuring out a parking spot. It's going to it's going to spot empty spots much better than a human. It's got 360-degree vision, and it's going to, like I said, just it's going to use reasoning to solve things.
So I don't know if people get that fully. Like it starts to make decisions. I think we're seeing some of this in some of the videos we're seeing already, but it's going to start making decisions about what it needs to do that aren't just like simple decisions. It's making more complex decisions. And Elon says it's going to seem human. Like, I don't know. Human drivers are often stupid. I'm not that impressed with human. I don't know. I don't know what he means by that.
And fitting that all inside the computer that has AI4 is the actual challenge. That's what the team is working on. Because obviously you can do reasoning on the server that takes forever, but then in car you need to make real-time decisions. So fitting all that into the computer that's in the car, that's the challenge.
So William asks the question, how does FSD Optimus factor in truth? Isn't reasoning based on truth? Well, in contrast to Grok and ChatGPT, which are all getting their truth from what people say, the cars are making their decisions based on what's coming in the cameras, which is probably a lot closer to objective truth than what someone says is in the camera, right? What the text that reads off the internet could be false, it could be true, but the car is in the business of looking through its cameras and seeing what's out there and making decisions about what's there based on what it sees.
Yeah, that's why I say I have a pretty good understanding of like AI, the sort of the giant model level with Grok and with Tesla, and like I'm confident in saying that Tesla has the Tesla AI has the highest intelligence density. When you look at the intelligence per gigabyte, I think like Tesla AI is probably an order of magnitude better than anyone else, and it doesn't have any choice because that AI has got to fit in the AI4 computer.
So this is a challenge. This is the challenge to Tesla's AI team: is you've got to program all this stuff, and it's going to happen inside the car, right? The car has to make these decisions. And I want to come back to. I don't want to come back to. I think that's an important point. Let me see. I don't want to make this video take too long. The chats AI are programmed. Yeah.
But the discipline of having that level of AI intelligence density will pay great dividends when you go to something that has an order of magnitude more capability like AI5. Now you have that same intelligence density, but you've got 10 times more capability in the computer.
So if the AI5 hardware is 10 times as powerful as the AI4 hardware, and you've made your AI4 hardware very, very in a high level of intelligence for the amount of compute you have, and now you 10x the amount of compute you have, you get 10x the level of intelligence driving the car. And maybe it gets bored and you need to use inference compute from it. The last thing about FSD that I have in this video is about hardware 3, which people are desperate to hear. So let's listen about hardware 3.
For a new vehicle.
Yeah, we've not completely given up on hardware 3.
Critical detail here. Ashok says we have not given up on hardware 3. I think Elon is sort of leaning towards let's just do something for people and give them new chips, or do something for them. And Ashok believes that he can make it work on hardware 3.
Over the last year, we've offered the customers the option to transfer FSD to their new vehicle, which at times we've been running some promotions. If they got FSD, they can get better preferential rates. So we've been definitely taking care of this, but we do want to solve autonomy first, and then we'll come back with a way to take care of these customers. These customers are very important. They were the early adapters. For what it's worth, my daily commuter is a hardware 3 car, which I use FSD on a daily basis. So we will definitely take care of you guys.
So he's reassuring hardware 3 owners it'll be taken care of. I'm not sure if that was Vaibhav or Ashok talking, but we will take care of hardware 3 owners, and they believe they've got it coming. And here's another voice coming in about this.
Great.
And
Thank you.
In addition, once the V14 release series is fully done, we are planning on working on a V14 Lite version for hardware 3, probably expected in Q2 next year.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashok.
So he says thanks to Ashok. So I think the last voice was Ashok, and the previous voice was Vaibhav. So Vaibhav is driving a hardware 3 car. Surprised he hasn't upgraded to a hardware 4 car, but okay. But Ashok is saying we will get hardware, we will do something for hardware 3, and he's predicting Q2 of 2026. So about 6 months from now, we're going to see that sucks for hardware 3. I just drove my 2018 Model 3 back in Florida for a few days, 2 days, with FSD version 12. And I don't know, it wasn't nearly as good as what I see in the videos, but it's way better than it was when I was driving FSD before 2 years ago. So yeah, just be clear, I think that was Vaibhav that's driving hardware 3, and Ashok coming in at the end saying we're going to take care of the hardware 3 people. Jifferific is very upset here. Jifferific, I can't tell if you're just a troll, just so you know. Is it going to park in spots that are actual spots and not random spaces, was a comment you made before. My car, when I'm parking, I don't have FSD, but my car has auto park. I have a new Model Y here in Thailand where there is no FSD. And my car identifies spots really, really well. So I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm gonna mute Jifferific because I think that this guy is a troll. So I'm gonna hide user on this channel. Thanks, Jifferific. Thanks for participating. I don't like people trolling the channel. I think it ruins the chat. So all right, let's move on here. So we've covered hardware 3, so we're moving on. We're getting closer to the Optimus news. Are you excited? And now we have Optimus. We're not at Optimus yet, but we're getting towards Optimus. If you're excited about Optimus, I'm excited about Optimus. We're going to talk about Megapack first.
We unveiled Megablock, Megapack 3. We also have exciting plans for Megapack 4.
So this is the first time I've heard Megapack 4 mentioned. If you have been following closely, they had a presentation about Megablock and Megapack 3, which takes Megapack from a roughly 4 megawatt hour battery storage device to a 5 megawatt hour battery storage device, and an architecture where you put 4 Megapack 3s together and you create a Megablock. And this makes utility scale installations much more effective. But now we've got a Megapack 4 coming. We don't know when, because they haven't even started making Megapack 3 yet, and he's already talking about Megapack 4, which is typical Elon. So let's go with that.
Megapack 4 will incorporate a lot of what is normally in a substation, and be able to output at probably 35 kilovolts directly. So this greatly improves our ability to deploy Megapack because it's not dependent on building a substation up through 35 kV for Megapack 4. So that'll be that's the engineering priority for Megapack.
So just to be clear, what he's saying is, and then he's talked about this before, there's a problems in the electrical grid of not having enough voltage transformers. And it's basically whenever you're going to deploy something that affects the grid, you need the grid infrastructure to update to keep up with you, and you can't deploy it if you don't have the right grid infrastructure. But if Megapack incorporates its own grid infrastructure, then that saves cost, and it means you can deploy even if the grid doesn't keep up. So, they put an LCD monitor on the faceplate. Oh, we're talking about Optimus there. We're going to get to Optimus in a minute. So anyway, that was good Megapack news. Number one, things are growing. We know we're on track for Megapack 3 and Megablock in Houston coming up. Presumably Shanghai will switch over to Megapack 3 and Megablock in 6 months to a year, and they'll ramp. And then Lathrop in California will switch over to Megapack 3 and they'll ramp. And you'll go from what we basically had for a while is 40 gigawatt hours of production in Lathrop capacity to now I think we're close to, or if not already there, at fully ramped in Shanghai. So we've got 80 gigawatt hours of capacity. You had 50 gigawatt hours in Houston, and the other two go to 50 each, and you go to 150 gigawatt hours of production capacity for Megapack. And the demand is basically endless because all these AI data centers are going to need this stuff. I think the big use case coming up is everybody wants to deploy AI data centers, and the best tool you can have to give yourself clean, reliable power in your AI data center is having Megapacks there to back up your power supply. So I think that's a pretty big chunk of revenue for Tesla. If they're on pace for 150 gigawatt hours a year, that's almost 40 gigawatt hours a quarter, assuming they haven't built another factory, right? And their best quarter so far is 12.5 gigawatt hours. If you're going to go to 40 gigawatt hours a quarter, you're like 3xing the Megapack revenue. That's a lot. And the price might go up because of this AI data center demand. All right, let's go with.
I have nothing but great things to say about Samsung.
So this is about the AI 5 chip and maybe the AI 6 chip. There was a question about Samsung manufacturing the chip, and Elon gave a lot more detail here.
An amazing company, and Samsung, it is worth noting, does manufacture our AI 4 computer and does a great job doing that. Now with the AI 5, and here's I need to make a point of clarification relative to some comments I've made publicly before, which is we're actually going to focus both TSMC and Samsung initially on AI 5.
So before, he said that TSMC was going to make AI 5 and Samsung was going to make AI 6. Samsung making AI 4. Now it appears that AI 5 will be made by both TSMC and Samsung. So that's two suppliers. And my guess would be that AI 6 will ultimately be made by both suppliers as well.
So the AI 5 chip design by Tesla is, I think it's an amazing design. I've spent almost every weekend for last few months with the chip design team working on AI 5. And I don't hand out praise easily, but I have to say that I think the Tesla chip team is really designing an incredible chip here.
So Elon's about to dive in depth about what's special about the AI 5 hardware, and I just want to address FSD Driver just asked in the chat. Do you think Tesla would benefit from working with Apple in chip manufacturing? I keep hearing how amazing Apple M chips are, even their new modern C1 chips. Would this be a good or bad move? Why? So Elon's going to explain that the chips that they're making for AI 5 are very, very, very specialized. I'm not saying that Apple's chips aren't advanced, but it's a different goal. It's just a completely different goal. And, he'll talk about NVIDIA in this clip. And he likes NVIDIA. He's very impressed with NVIDIA. But because Tesla's needs are so specialized, having this hyper-specialized chip is really, really important. And they're working with Samsung and they're working with TSMC, who are the two best in the industry at making chips. So I don't know why they would need to work with Apple. I'm not, Mark criticized Apple in the chat. I'm not criticizing Apple. It's just like they're making something very different. But working with Samsung, working with TSMC, you're at the core level right there.
By some metrics, the AI5 chip will be 40 times better than the AI4 chip. Not 40%, 40 times. Because we have a detailed understanding of the entire software and hardware stack. So we're designing the hardware to address all of the pain points in software. I don't think there really isn't anyone that's doing this, the entire stack, all the way through real world, calibrating against the real world where you've got cars and robots in real world. That, like, we know what the chip needs to do, and we know what, just as importantly, we know what the chip doesn't need to do. To sort of give you some examples here, with the AI5, we deleted the legacy GPU or the traditional GPU, which is it's in AI4, but AI5 does not have. We just deleted the legacy GPU because it basically is a GPU. We also deleted the image signal processor, and there's like a long list of deletions that are very important. As a result of these deletions, we can actually fit AI5 in a half reticle, and with good margin for the traces from the memory to the Tesla trip accelerators, the ARM CPU cores, and the PCI X the PCI blocks. So this is a beautiful chip.
Yeah, thank you for joining the chat. Ice Wendigo mentions the best part is no part. This is classic Elon. We realize we don't really need a separate GPU inside our GPU. It already is a GPU, and we don't need an image, the image recognition component, because we're going straight to photons. So, there's some good progress there. But this is, Tesla, and there was a question about Tesla making its own fab. As I understand it, the fabs make such a high volume that it doesn't make sense for Tesla. Like, Tesla's demand for chips, as big as it is, isn't big enough to support the demand for a full fab. So I don't think they're planning, and because these other companies are really good at making fabs, and because the profit margins are there, but they're not that crazy, Tesla doesn't gain that much by making their own fab. And that's, the level of the team you would need to build, and the CapEx that would go into that is crazy high.
I've poured so much life energy into this chip personally, and I'm confident this is going to be a winner, next level. So it makes sense to have both Samsung and TSMC focus on AI5. And so even like technically the Samsung fab has slightly more advanced equipment than the TSMC fab. These will both be made in the U.S. In one TSMC in Arizona, Samsung in Texas.
So note, the chips are made in the United States. That protects from tariffs. They were made somewhere else. Maybe there'd be tariff issues. And hello, Neil. My personal friend Neil is in the chat now, although he retracted his message.
But it's we're going to make, starting off, just to be confident of having our explicit goal is to have an oversupply of AI5 chips. Because if we have too many AI5 chips for the cars and robots, we can always put them in the data center. So we already use AI4 for training in our data center. So we use a combination of AI4 and NVIDIA hardware.
Just really quick, William asks, what about vertical integration for chip fabs? So Tesla and Elon's companies do vertical integration when there isn't a sufficient supplier base outside of Tesla, or there's some sort of problem with the supply chain. And so for Optimus, there's no supply chain available. There's nobody makes the stuff that they need, so they have to build their own vertically integrated supply chain. at the internal, basically within the company. But there are great companies out there making great chips, so they don't need to make their own chips. So they don't need to. In the early days of Tesla, they had trouble getting support from the automotive supply chain because they figured out this company's tiny. We got to focus on GM and Ford, so they wouldn't get their top people from the supplier. So they ended up doing a lot of vertically integrated stuff. William also asked about the Samsung Silver battery. I don't think there's anything significant with batteries to talk about. I haven't heard anything meaningful about that. There's this new battery. Until they make it in volume, no one cares. Neil says, loving my Juniper, but still driving my 3 daily. Looking forward to an update. I talked about that earlier in the video, that hardware 3 will get an update. It looks like Q2 of next year. They'll do an V14 Lite. That's the expectation from Ashok.
We're not about to replace NVIDIA, to be clear, but we do use both in combination, AI4 and NVIDIA hardware, and the AI5 excess production we can always put in our data centers. NVIDIA keeps improving. The challenge that they have is that they've got to satisfy a large range, a lot of requirements from a lot of customers. But Tesla only has to satisfy requirements from one customer. That's Tesla. That makes the design job radically easier, and means we can delete a lot of complexity from the chip. I can't emphasize how important this is. So like when you look at the various logic blocks in the chip, as you increase the number of logic blocks, you also increase the interconnections between the logic blocks. So you can think of it like just highways. Like how many highways do you need to connect the various parts of the chip? And especially if you're not sure how much data is going to go between each logic block on the chip, then you kind of end up having giant highways going all over the place. It becomes an almost impossibly difficult design problem, and NVIDIA's done an amazing job of dealing with almost an impossibly difficult set of requirements.
So the point he's making here is if you remove the unnecessary GPU and you remove the unnecessary image recognition component on the chip, you've got less interconnects to go, and you just have more space for your your Jeep, the stuff that you need to do. I think he said they go to a half reticle, so the chip may actually be half the size, which means you get twice as much production out of the fab. So you get twice as many chips per wafer. So there's a lot of advantages to doing it the right way, and that's the progress that they're making.
But in our case, we're going for radical simplicity, and the net effect is that I think AI5 will be the best performance per watt, maybe by a factor of 2 or 3, and the best performance per dollar for AI, maybe by a factor of 10. So, that's, we'll have to, the proof's in the pudding. So obviously we need to actually get this chip made, and made at scale. But that's what it looks like.
So efficiency per watt means you use less energy. The big driver effectively of your AI compute is how much energy do you have to use. In the car, if your AI compute uses more energy, you get less range. In your AI data center, you've got to get more power in there, and you need more cooling to deal with the power. So if you can make your chips more efficient on a energy basis, then you're saving money. And if you can make your chips more efficient on a cost basis, again, you're saving money, and you're delivering real value. All right, we're going to move on to Tesla AI versus XAI. This is something I've talked about a lot before. We're going to talk about it again.
That Tesla and XAI complementary, or are they just different forms of AI? Maybe you could just help distinguish for the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, they are different forms of AI. So
I want to stress when you're listening to this, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, Grok is going to be the brain of Optimus. I think if you listen to what Elon says here, you're going to conclude, no, Tesla AI is making the brain for Optimus. You could argue it's a semantic argument, but listen to what he says here.
the XAI, so Grok is like a giant model that you could not possibly squeeze Grok onto a car. That's for sure. It is a giant beast of a model. It's with Grok, it's trying to solve for artificial general intelligence with a massive amount of AI training compute and inference compute. So, for example, for Grok 5 will actually only run effectively on a GB300. That's how much of a beast that Grok 5 is. So, whereas Tesla's, models are, I don't know, maybe about less than 10% the size, maybe closer to 5% the size of Grok.
So Grok as a model to make AI decisions is too large to fit not only an AI 4, but even AI 5.
So yeah, they're really coming at the problem from very different angles. XAI and Grok are they're competing with Google Gemini and OpenAI ChatGPT and that kind of thing. So and some of it's complementary. I mean, for example, for Grok Voice, being able to interact with Grok in the car is cool. Grok for Optimus voice recognition and voice generation is Grok, so that's helpful there. But they are coming at it from kind of opposite ends of the spectrum.
So fundamentally, if you're using Grok, it has to run in a cloud, and then your communication has to go to the cloud and come back, and that creates a lot of latency. Because if you ever use ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini, you don't get answers immediately, but Tesla FSD makes decisions in milliseconds, not seconds, milliseconds. Optimus is going to be making decisions in milliseconds, not seconds. So if you have to wait 5 or 10 seconds for an answer from Grok, then you're not going to have a useful robot. Grok will be in Optimus and useful to some extent for like voice recognition, some conversation, but in terms of actual decision making for the bot, it's not Grok. I know you want it to be Grok. I know a lot of people want it to be Grok, but I think if you listen to that carefully, listen to this video again later, mark the time that you're looking at it right now. This is something that I think Elon's as clear as he could be here. So we're going to switch to talking about CapEx. I think this is important. I'll explain why in a second.
On the CapEx front, while we are expecting to be around $9 billion for the current year, we're projecting the numbers to increase substantially in 2026 as we prepare the company for the next phase of growth in terms of not just our existing businesses, but our bets around AI initiatives, including Optimus. On the
So you've got substantial CapEx coming, right? We spent they're targeting $9 billion for the 2025 calendar year, some much larger amount for increasing production capacity of existing cars, for producing Cybercab, and they're going to be spending money on Optimus. And my take is, yeah, you got this $41 billion cash pile. I'm not sure Q4 is going to be hugely positive on cash, but when you go into 2026, you're going to be spending a lot of cash, maybe building a Robotaxi fleet, maybe building Optimus, maybe building Cybercab, maybe deploying more hardware, more AI hardware to build out Cortex so you can do more compute. A lot of this stuff going on. Okay. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that. Very nice. So going along with that, one of the things that I noticed, this is the statement of operations, and I'm going to take this out in a second. Statement of operations for Q3. So if you look at the blue box, that's research and development. If you look, R&D expenses are going up. Somewhere else, I don't remember exactly where in the clip, which clip it was, Ashok talked about R&D spending going up. That's one of the things that increased operating expenses. So R&D spending is increasing. To me, that's a good sign. I wanted to see CapEx going up, and it looks like CapEx will go up next year. I think Tesla should be spending more of its money on building up the company. But there's a timing question of when do you need to do your CapEx, and there's an efficiency of CapEx efficiency that's a big thing for Elon. But you can see that R&D spending is way up, dramatic increases in R&D spending. That's a good thing. That's FSD. All right, so now we're going to get into Optimus.
We look forward to unveiling Optimus V3 Probably in Q1. I think it'll be ready for to show off. We look forward to.
So Optimus V3. So this is Optimus V2.5 right here. So Optimus V3 is going to be in Q1. I've got a much longer clip from Elon about Optimus coming up, but V3 will be coming in Q1. Let's listen to Elon about Optimus.
Well, we're not. The hardware design will not actually be frozen, even through startup production. There'll be continued iteration, because a bunch of the things that you discover are very difficult to make. You only find that pretty late in the game. So we'll be doing rolling changes for the Optimus design even after startup production. But I do think that the new hand is an incredible piece of engineering, and that's well, like I said, we'll have a production intent prototype ready to show off in Q1, probably February or March.
So that's less than 6 months away that we're going to see production intent V3 Optimus. I don't remember how much he says in this clip. Let's keep going.
And then we're going to be building a million unit Optimus production line.
Get ready. We're going to build a 1 million unit Optimus production line in 2026. It gets better.
Hopefully with a production start towards the end of next year. But that.
So production of Optimus V3 starts end of next year. So they're not really scaling Optimus in 2026. Start producing at the end of 2026, maybe early 2027, and they ramp in 2027.
Production ramp will take a while to get to annualized rate of 1 million, because it's going to move as fast as the slowest, dumbest, least lucky thing out of 10,000 unique items.
Okay, really quick regarding Mark Plott's comment, the supply chain does not exist to make 1 million Optimus. They're bringing almost all Optimus manufacturing in-house. There is no supply chain for Optimus. They have to start it from scratch. But they're making their own components. So I think the supply chain is raw materials rather than components. You're not going to see, what do you mean Optimus functional is advertised? They haven't advertised any functionality yet. He just told us we're not going to see Optimus at all, any new version of Optimus, until February or March, and it's not going to be manufactured until the end of next year, so you're not going to see them in significant volume until 2027.
But it will get to 1 million units, and then ultimately, we'll do Optimus 4. That'll be 10 million units. Optimus 5, maybe 50 to 100 million units. I mean, it's really pretty nutty. Yeah.
So here's our timeline now. Roughly early beginning of 2027, they start manufacturing Optimus V3. And, the way he's talked about Optimus, like, it's going to look much more human. It's not going to have this 3-inch waist. The forearm and hand is going to be much more complicated. The brain will obviously be AI5 instead of AI4, trending towards AI6 in the future. So that's 2027. You start ramping production, and probably does not ramp to a full million in 2027. It probably ramps to a full 1 million units a year in 2028. What are they doing with these Optimus? We don't know. V4, you would guess 18 months to 2 years later. So 2029, we start making the V4 Optimus. And one of the things he talked about earlier in this video, or in the call, was the challenge of you're making the bot that's good, capable of doing things, but as you start manufacturing, you realize, wait a minute, this is hard to manufacture this way. We need to come up with another way of manufacturing, or we need to manufacture this more efficiently, and that means we have to change something in the bot. So the first 3 to 6 months of manufacturing is like figuring out, all right, what problems do we have in manufacturing this thing? Maybe V4 ramps faster, but I think we can look at, we're going to see version 4 of Optimus maybe 2029, and that's going to ramp to 10 million units a year, and that might ramp quicker. And then early 2030s, we're going to see V4 of V5 of Optimus, and now we're talking about 50 to 100 million units a year. And I think that's low compared to what's needed for the size of the market for this incredible Optimus. So Jimmy Wang says, so that's it for our clips, by the way. So we're going to just do chat now. Jimmy Wang says, so will Optimus ever go on mission to Mars? When is next launch to Mars with spacecraft? So optimistically, we will see a launch to Mars next year, 2026, like end of next year. That's pretty optimistic. I think most people are betting we don't really get a launch to Mars until 2028. By 2028, yeah, I think they will have Optimus on the launch to Mars. 2026, probably not, because they're not manufacturing it in any volume in 2026, if they're manufacturing at all. Very short time to buy more Tesla shares. Yeah, look, just talking about Tesla stock for a second, you know, for those who know, I'm nearly all in. I did recently sell 4% of my Tesla stock in order to buy NVIDIA. I haven't made a decision yet. I haven't sold any Tesla stock in advance of the shareholder vote. Maybe I should, but I haven't made that call yet. I would buy back in immediately after the shareholder vote, assuming it passes. I think it's almost certain to pass based on everything we've seen. Never know. Not financial advice. You guys got to make your own decisions. If you're all in, it's a significant risk that the shareholder vote goes no. So, okay, I've gone way more than an hour. So I think I've covered everything. I think this was a comprehensive look at the Q3 call. I think there's a lot here. I'm surprised more people didn't watch. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I thought we usually get a lot more viewers than this. So something happened that I don't know if there's like some big sporting event or some other event going on, but we didn't get nearly as much as usual. But I want to thank Mark Plott, Mark Potocnik, and I don't know if Jim Whitehead is still here, but I thank the moderators for helping with the chat. There was actually one or two issues in the chat this time. William, did you have something you wanted to say? I'm not gone yet. Boring, tedious, dangerous work has been the selling point for years. Yeah, well, it's going to do boring, tedious, and dangerous work. Like my theory, really quick, my theory on what Optimus is going to do is that Tesla is going to start, and Elon said yes to this effectively, that Tesla is going to start deploying massive solar. And the best way to deploy massive solar would be to have Optimus doing a lot of the work. If you're going to have 1 million Optimus bots and you want to deploy, terawatts of solar, then you do a lot of massive ground solar on a lot of land using your capital to buy a lot of land and buy a lot of solar panels, and you deploy a crap ton of solar panels and have Optimus do a lot of the work. I believe China has robots for doing a lot of the work of deploying solar panels, so maybe you buy some of those, but the Optimus could help with that too. John Taylor says it's one thing to build the robot. What about the software training? He makes no mention of it. No, they talked about the training. So the training, the AI hardware and the AI software that allows the cars to learn how to drive a car, navigate space, allows Optimus to learn how to navigate space as well. And then the next level is the thing that I think the challenge in training is going to be, they're building this massive AI training cluster. They're growing it, hugely. I think they're going to grow it a lot more next year. The challenge for Optimus is not just navigating space, and it navigates more complex space than the cars do, but at lower speed. But it also needs to manipulate objects. Pick that object up. Cars never pick an object up. The cars never manipulate an object. So that's a new challenge for AI training. From what I can tell, they're already pretty good at that, and that will get even better. I want to see an Optimus setup to do Starship EVA work. Yeah, I mean, I think that the Optimus doing meaningful work beyond grunt work. Like I say, putting solar panels up. I think we can all see Optimus doing that, and that's huge value because it lowers the cost of deploying massive solar, and we need massive solar to train the AIs. Mark says 140 is a good crowd. Actually, I think at our peak we get over 300 people watching at a time, so we're well below what I usually get on a. Oh, this isn't Sunday. That's the problem. My Sunday live streams get more viewers, not live streams like this one. That's the problem. Sunday live stream is the busy one that gets over 300 sometimes. Okay, well, anyway, it is well past my bedtime, and I am traveling in about 12 hours hopping on a plane. So, and my output will probably be down. I should be able to do a live stream on Sunday. I'm not certain of that. I think I'll be doing a live stream in a couple of days. So we'll talk more then. Thanks everybody so much. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.